All right, welcome back to Beneath the Helmet Season 3. Another great episode, another great interview, another great sharing of wisdom with the world. I'm your host, Guino George, former fire chief turned podcaster, author, as well as coach. I'm here today with a special guest right from the South. Well, south of me, anyways, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
I got Dr. Brendan Guarino. He was a licensed psychologist. He's also a professor at his school that he went to school to become a psychologist, which is very awesome. So, Felican University. And he's also the director at Baker Street Behavioral Health.
It's time to ignite your soul and unlock your full potential. Join us on Beneath the Helmet, the podcast exploring firefighters' health and wellness. Hosted by retired fire chief Guino George, our podcast is the perfect place to start your journey towards becoming the best version of yourself. So come on, let's join the conversation and find out what sets your soul on fire.
So, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, hear a little bit about your story and who you are and what you can share with the first responder world. So welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Sure. So my name is Dr. Brendan Guarino. I'm a psychologist, a licensed psychologist, and I'm the director of Guardians for Guardians at Baker Street Behavioral Health. So Guardians for Guardians is a outpatient mental health program that services first responders and their families. We are located in North Jersey, 6 locations throughout North Jersey. We provide virtual and in-person sessions across the coast from coast to coast. More broadly, Baker Street offers a wide variety of services across the lifespan from head to toe, such as individual therapy, medication management, biofeedback, and we also have podiatry. So that's a little bit about Baker Street. Where I've come from, my background. So I was born and raised in North Jersey, specifically Bergen County. I'm not sure if you know where that is, but we're the northest, one of the northest counties. We are the northest county in New Jersey. So I come from a large family of first responders. My uncle, my cousin, my father, all firemen, volunteer firemen. My mother's brother, so my uncle, it was in the military. My cousin's in the military. I have friends who are police officers in different states, Rhode Island, New Hampshire. And I kind of just grew up around the first responder lifestyle or like what they've been through. And I was never on the job. I never was a fireman, I never was a police officer. I tried to become a law enforcement officer. A little bit, I'll tell you a little bit about that journey, but I just never really got into it. And I realized the profound impact that it had on them because I'd hear them tell stories about, arrests or fires or, pulling people out of cars and sleep deprivation, shift work, missing holidays, missing birthdays, right? And I just saw the impact it had on them and the families, and I really wanted to try to find a way to give back. So how I really got started with this profession is kind of funny. I actually fell into it in a way, based on my background, right, with having a lot of friends and family in law enforcement and being first responders. After college, I was really, really lost. So I was a college athlete. I wrestled from the time I was 5 until the time I was about 21. I wrestled, so that's about 15 years. I was really lost because I was doing something from 5 to 21, and then all of a sudden it went away, right? I was working out, I was cutting weight, I was cutting weight, I was eating healthy, I was doing all these things. And one day it just kind of went away from me. And then no one really helped me to transition from doing something essentially my whole entire life, to not doing anything at all. So I was trying to find myself. So I graduated, I come home, and that's like, what do I do? Like, where do I go? So like, what's the next step? And the next step for me was to get a job. Now I see all these people around me who are firemen, police officers, and I'm like, oh, it's a likely thing to do. So I tried to become a law enforcement officer, took a bunch of tests, tried to become a state police officer in New Jersey. Didn't get too far in that process. And then I realized that one day I was like, I'm not doing this because I love it. I'm doing this because I thought this is what I wanted to do, because I really didn't have an identity there. Right. So my question to myself is like, what am I going to do? What can I do? What do I want to see what do I see myself doing long term? So I tried to dabble in a bunch of other things, which didn't make sense to me it made sense to me at the time. It doesn't make sense to me now. I tried to become a personal trainer. I tried to open up my own kind of like mom and pop like cheesecake making business like from my house, because I like to cook a lot. I tried to be a teacher, which I taught a little bit for a little bit, and I do now, which is kind of funny thinking about it. Um, but then I fell into this job where I was a teacher's aide in a preschool. Now I promise you this will coincide with how I got there. I worked with a behaviorist, I worked with a psychologist, and I loved what they did, and I loved helping. I loved giving back, and even going back to college, I was part of this group called One in Four. It was a men's group that helped men help women if they were ever been sexually assaulted or had any sort of incident with anybody on campus. And it was a program that we had to get trained in. And I think that was like one of my first exposures of helping people and kind of like a therapy aspect. I did see a sports psychologist in college. So my goal was to really give back and try to find a way to give back. So working with these two people, I decided to go back to school, and I live in Lodi, New Jersey, and Felician is in Lodi, New Jersey, where I teach. And that's was just made sense to me at the time because I was working in a school as a teacher's aide. I was coaching football, and it was just like an easy transition, and it fit well with the time frame. So I go back to school, I get my master's in counseling psychology, and my whole entire time I'm in there, I'm like, I'm going to work with athletes. That's all I want to do. All I want to work with is athletes, and that's there's no if or buts about it. I don't work with athletes because I realize it's really hard to get to work with athletes. And I think I had this like jaded idea of like what working with athletes was, and uh, didn't need a chance to do it. I ended up doing everything else under the sun that I didn't want to do. Right. I worked in substance abuse. I worked in a hospital. I did private practice. And then I found myself going into the doctoral program because that was, again, the next likely step, because that was the next step after that. So fast forward, go through my whole entire work. I'm still not working with any athletes. I'm still not working with first responders. And I gained a lot of valuable information, a lot of valuable insight into like what it is to work with first responders, what it is to work with athletes by not working with them, because I realized like they are also people, right? Like we're all people. We just have a tag. We have a label to us. So I go to my internship, and my internship was at Center for Anxiety in New York. And that internship brought me on. And one of the things that they had was an opportunity to work with the World Trade Center Foundation through Mount Sinai. And I was like, wow, okay, that is something that I think I would love to do, because I have a, kind of like just an understanding of language and, cultural competency, as we understand people. And I found myself really falling in love with working with this population, and finding that it gave me a little bit of like, it scratched the itch of like competition essentially. So it's like I wanted to become a psychologist because I come to work every day. It's a big Rubik's cube for me, where I have to constantly problem solve and constantly, move things and manipulate things and think about processes. And it challenges me. And that's what I missed about competition. That's what I missed about like my identity of being an athlete. So I started working with first responders through that. And then I came to Baker Street. There was a big need in Baker Street for someone to kind of take over the program. And kind of spearhead what it would look like to work with first responders. And that's how I got here. It was a long road, and I'm glad I'm here, and I feel like I'm making a difference. And it is something that is really great, because like, again, I have a lot of friends who are police officers, and we talk a lot, and I love to learn, because again, I've never been on the job. I've never worked as a fireman, police officer, EMT. I've never done any of that. So I like to learn from other people. And I've learned a lot from my patients. I learned a lot from my friends. I learned a lot just talking to people who are first responders. And yeah, that's how I essentially got to this point.
Well, yeah, and I'm also assuming that you want to be a police officer at the beginning and the early stages to help people.
Yeah.
You're probably helping equally as many people now, if not more, than you were, if you became a police officer.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it full circle, and yeah, I love it. Great. So I'd love to dig in before we go into a couple other themes. You mentioned biofeedback, something that kind of interests me a lot. How do you use biofeedback at the clinic there?
So we have people that are especially trained in biofeedback at Baker Street. And again, biofeedback is just like a body mind technique that helps individuals learn how to control their physiological responses, like their heart rate and their muscle tension, breathing, through awareness and through the feedback of a computer, right? So the way we use it is we have people come into the clinic, or we're working on trying to get doing a virtual component to it. Where they come to the clinic, they get a band, they put the band on, and then they practice regulating themselves through a system, right? So they know it in real time. I'm sorry, they see it in real time, and then that awareness builds, and then they practice it over time. They practice how to breathe, how to regulate themselves, how to regulate muscle tension. Um, if their heart rate gets up, they know what to do. So it's kind of like laying a blueprint for yourself down, and it's great. It's helped a lot of different individuals. And one of the aspects of that I also like incorporate into my practice is through mental visualization, especially with first responders. I mean, it's a sports psych technique, right? A lot of athletes do it. I've done it pretty much my whole entire life in terms of being an athlete, and it never really clicked for me that it's also a thing that other people can do too. So it was a kind of a great realization when I realized, like, oh, hey, we could also use this with first responders, right? Because my idea with a first responder is that they are high performers. And the term high performance, right, is also is very it coincides with sports, right? It coincides with executives, it coincides with military, but first responders also are I lump that in. I think a lot of people also lump them in with the high performers because within that whole entire group that I just mentioned, you have to be at your highest level. You have to be performing at your highest level. You have to be taking care of your bodies. You have to be practicing, right? So all those things have to take into account how to do them. So if you don't have, again, I'll talk about blueprint. If you don't have a blueprint of how to do that, it's really hard to incorporate, okay, I'm going on a call. I'm nervous. I'm anxious. What do I do to get my heart rate down? And I find that a lot of the visualization exercises, help individuals who maybe are, like I said, nervous about going on a call or nervous about a process. Um, they find themselves in this opportunity to close their eyes and visualize themselves in depth of what they do. So there's a video that I often show people. It's the Blue Angels, the air people. Yeah,
Love
yeah.
that video.
The
Love
the
that
guy who
video.
f- the guy who the guys who fly around, do all the acrobatics in the air, right? I'm sure you've seen it. They
Oh, that's
they
awesome.
close their eyes and they visualize themselves doing it because there's very, very small margin for error when they're doing that. So there's a video that I show, and it's them closing their eyes and them calling out calls, and they're actually physically going through the calls in their mind and in action, and it helps them visualize their process, right? So it's the same thing that I give to first responders, I give to athletes, I give to executives, and we work with some sports teams that helps them out, and especially with visualizing your goals, visualizing how you're going to get there positively or effectively working through a situation. Um, and it's a good thing to have. It's a good tool to have in the back of your, in your toolbox.
Yeah, Blue Angels video. If you haven't seen it, we'll probably put a link in the show notes. But yeah, it's definitely a highlight for sure. I've seen also F1 drivers do the
Yeah.
exact same thing, just memorizing the track, but also the maneuvers, and yeah, it's pretty amazing. Yeah,
There's also on Netflix, I think at one point during like the Full Swing episode, one of the caddies was going through the course and just internally visualizing the course, and just saying, just telling his golfer, I'm not sure who it was, it might have been Rory McIlroy's caddy, saying, "Hey, hit on 18, you go here, you know, you hit on 18, you go here, but it was all in his head because he walked the course and he visualized it, right? So, and I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure I saw that on there.
So the listener who's kind of hearing this right now and going, how could I incorporate some visualization into my life to maybe help with maybe my anxiety or maybe just my confidence as a first responder? Is there like a first step somebody could use there, or is this something they need some guidance from somebody else?
Yeah, so one of the things that I often tell people when they're new at it is try to identify like a goal in mind when you're trying to when you want to start mentally visualizing something, right? So let's say I want to mentally visualize how I might get through a wrestling match or the techniques I'm going to get through a wrestling match. I know my process. I know what I want to do, but I'm a little nervous about or I'm a little unsure about how to navigate it, right? So my goal would be to get through the match in my head. So I might close my eyes and kind of picture the scene, right? So picture the mat, what the smells are like, what I'm feeling, what I might be experiencing in the moment. There's a crowd, there's my coach, and I close my eyes and I kind of I visualize myself doing the moves. And I might also do the moves in this in tandem, right? So there's a lot of we used to do this in practice all the time, and it's something I'm actually thinking about right now, where our coach used to tell us to close our eyes and just go through your moves, right? Go through your moves, but also do them as you're standing there. So you would go through a double, you would level change, you would take a shot, you would sprawl, and you close your eyes and you mentally visualize your opponent coming at you and what you're going to do and how you're going to react. It's the same exact thing going through any process, right? So if you're a law enforcement officer, you're a fireman, let's say that you have a process, and I know for some individuals, and correct me if I'm wrong, but for the fire service you have to go through like a and talk to a board in terms of getting on, and you have to kind of work through a system of what would you do in this scenario, right? So that is an opportunity that you could definitely use this and be like, okay, what are my responsibilities of running the line? What are my responsibilities of tapping into the fire hydrant? What are my responsibilities of setting the scene? So then you can go through you can visualize yourself actually doing it, but the key there is visualizing yourself doing it in an effective way. Because if you don't visualize yourself doing an effective way, that then causes errors, right? It causes little blips in your opportunity to do it. So the thing that I think a lot of people can do to start off with is just setting a goal for themselves, mentally setting a scene, and then going through that scene in the most effective way they possibly can.
Love it. Love it. I'm a big believer of that. I use it myself and I use it with my clients as well, is just kind of bring them through. Usually it's around a stressful conversation they're about to have is where it seems
Yeah.
to pop up the most useful. And you kind of walk through that conversation with the client or with the person, and by the end of it, they're like, "Oh, that was easy.
Yeah.
That was not a
That was
difficult
nothing.
conversation." Yeah, yeah, love it, love
Yeah.
it. So you mentioned earlier on when you were talking about your career as an athlete and a wrestler, and maybe you want to, move this on in your career, or maybe you want to have a longer career as an athlete, and but then you had to retire. So what were
Yeah.
some of the challenges to you yourself and maybe the loved ones around you? What did they experience? What do you experience leaving wrestling, something you were so passionate about, and pivoting 100%?
Yeah. So, like I said before, I've wrestled since I was 5 or 6 years old, and this not even wrestled. I played football, I played baseball. So I was a three-sport athlete up until about my senior year, my junior year of high school. So I sacrificed a lot of my parents too, and my siblings sacrificed a lot of vacations. I sacrificed my birthday up until I was 20, 21 years old, 22 years old, because my birthday's in February. And February, if anybody out there listening that is a wrestler knows that that's districts week, that's districts week. You got to cut weight, you got to be on top of your game, you got to perform at your highest level. So
No
I
cake.
did not,
No cake.
yeah, no cake. None at all. I didn't have I don't really like cake, and maybe that's a byproduct of me not having it ever up till I was 21. But but yeah, I think a lot of the things that I struggled with was knowing how to kind of have an off season, um, like an off season per se, right? Um, what ended up happening, and I don't know if I really ever talked about this to people, but like I gained a lot of weight after I was done with wrestling. I pretty much all I did was eat and drink, right? And it was like a difficult. It wasn't because I was depressed or because at least I don't think I was, or it was because I was just trying to figure out like how to bide my time, right? And it was school. I would have school up until say like 2 o'clock, and then usually 2 o'clock on it was training, and then that one year I just didn't have it. And I was like, what do I do? Okay, like let me go hang out with friends. Let me go get wings. Let me go like be a play video games. And that transition to then not having that structure really messed with my mind. And I know now that if I don't have a and don't get me wrong, like there's days where I don't have a structure, but most of the days I have a structure of what I would like to do in a day. I have a book that's right here. Actually, it doesn't go any place else but with me, of what my day looks like. And I write down everything that I have to do for the day and all the things that I want to try to get done for the day. And whenever something pops in my mind, I write it in my book. Because I know if I don't do that, I might forget it because I'm busy. Like I have a lot of things like everybody else. We're busy. And I don't rely on my mind to only hold my agenda. I write it in a book too. So I utilize that tool. You could do it on your computer, you could do it on your phone, wherever it was. So that structure was I think the biggest hurdle for me to get through. And then when I realized that like I needed that structure, I needed to kind of be doing other things, was when I really grabbed onto jujitsu, because jujitsu was the thing that kind of scratched the itch for me for wrestling. I had a really kind of a bitter ending to my career where should have placed and whatever in my conference, and I swore to myself I'd never step foot on the mat ever again. And I've been doing jujitsu for about 11 years now, maybe a little bit more. So I found jujitsu as a way to put kind of that exercise and that structure back into my life, and replicate what I used to do in college, the competition, the meeting people, getting to know other people from other walks of life. And the thing that I think I struggle with the most, that I think that a lot of people that retire struggle with, is like when that thing that you've been grabbing onto for your whole entire life or been doing your whole entire life is not there anymore. Who are you beyond that? Like I've been a fireman my whole entire life, and all of a sudden I have to retire, maybe because I got injured, or I'm just need to retire because of old age and I can't do it anymore. Who am I beyond the badge? Who am I beyond the helmet? Right. And for some people, they start that process when they retire, right? After they retire, they start that process of who they are. Versus, I would love to have people in here that are about to retire and be like, okay, let's form a game plan. Like, let's figure out what we want to do. But it all comes down to finding hobbies, right? Finding who you are, again, beyond the badge, beyond the uniform, and figuring out like what are the things that you value in life and how do you get to those, right? How do you live in your value lanes per se? How do you do something every day that touches that value? So one of my biggest and my most important values in life is my family. I have a 5-year-old daughter. I have a wife, and my parents and my friends, I rope them in as family too. And if I don't do something every single day that touches that value, whether it's talking to them, texting them, I know my day is a little less like bright, a little less happy. And I experienced this actually last summer when I went on a jujitsu camp to Italy. There was like one day where I didn't talk to my daughter or wife for like, I think it was like 12 or 14 hours. And I was in my head, I'm like, wow, like this is weird. I haven't talked to them. I live with them. I see them every day. I get to like, kiss my daughter goodnight, kiss my wife goodnight and good morning. And I didn't get to do that. And it kind of messed with me a little bit. And then I ended up getting in touch with them and I felt better. Right. So it's again connecting with those things that you really care about. And I think that was one of the things that I really struggled with when I was when I retired per se, was finding who I was, like finding what I wanted to do with my life. And what I want to say, with little to no guidance, but my parents definitely helped me out a lot in guiding me. I had a roof over my head, I had food in my stomach. um, they helped me out a lot in terms of figuring out what I wanted to do, and they were like, hey, listen, you if you once you figure it out, once you figure out what you want to do, that's what you should do. Right. And then I found this.
Looking back, what would have prepared you more for, that final match that you're about to have? What would have prepared you more?
I think it would have been me facing the reality of this ending, of that ending, right? Of me not wrestling anymore, and kind of game planning for the future, which I did not do. To be really honest with you, and it's kind of funny that I'm a psychologist. I only did psychology in college because it got me out of college, right? So I did not plan to do this in college when I was in my bachelor's year. I literally did it because it was like, hey, if I want to wrestle, I need to pass school. And the people that know me, like I was a bio major my freshman year and I did not work out well. I tried to do some other things in there, and I found psychology because it was like an easy thing to do. So I didn't have a game plan moving forward. So I think one of the things that could have really helped me was planning for the future and understanding that, like, again, if I'm going to retire, I'm going to plan for the future. I'm going to plan. I don't have to plan 10 years down the road, but at least plan for the next 2, 3, 4 years and say, what are my goals? Like, what do I want to do in a way, like in a very like broad stroke? Where do I want to see myself? Where do I see myself in 5 years? And I didn't do that. And I think that would have been really helpful.
I love that. As a psychologist, what do you think about the idea of a gap year for retirement? This is something that I've been thinking about for a while. Is like,
Yeah,
after university or after high school, people take a gap year. But sometimes it's nice to take a gap year after retirement and just relax, recharge the
yeah,
batteries, go vacation, travel around, see people you haven't seen, and then go to plan B. Thoughts on that?
sure. I like that. I might take a gap year this year. No, I I love that. I think I kind of took a gap year, but in a way I took a gap year with a lot of worry, and that was like sunken into me, right? A lot of uncertainty of what to do, and within that gap year for me, and it might have been more of like a gap 2 or 3 years. My wife kind of whipped me in shape to get to she was like, you need to figure out what you want to do. And I thank her for that. But I think my gap years per se were a lot of me testing out the waters and trying to figure out where I fit, right? Where I fit with my in my own world. And really trying to figure out my own kind of identity beyond a wrestler, beyond an athlete. And I think it's also shaking a lot of those like stigmas of like who athletes are, who first responders are, of like we are not, I guess we are not, we don't have any emotion, or we're just like these stoic people. Like we're we're hard workers, but yet, hey, you talk to us about like a difficult thing and we shy away from it. We're problem solvers, right? Those are all things that are great, but at the same time, we have to look at back and say, who are we? Like who are you beyond that? Who are you beyond all those things that are also roped into your label? And I think a gap year is like perfect. Like it sounds great traveling, maybe cruising, doing something like that and taking some time off and maybe sitting down and game planning what you want to do for the next 5 years.
Yeah, maybe you're not starting from scratch, but maybe you have a
Yeah,
couple ideas in the up in your brain there. You're like, oh, I'm just going to stew on this for 6
sure.
months, a year, and enjoy life before the second chapter starts, right? So
Yeah, I take the concept of like a blueprint, and I've said it a couple of times here, where if you have a blueprint of what you kind of want to do, because what is a blueprint? It's a guide, right? A guide to building stuff, or a guide to doing things. So if you have that blueprint in your mind already of where you would like to go, because the foundation was laid before that. Like for me, for instance, I was an athlete my whole entire life, so my blueprint was this is what I want to do. I want to do something that is like what I used to do, but maybe not the whole thing. So I coached. I coached for about 5, 6 years. I was a head coach of a wrestling team for about 4 years. I was an assistant wrestling coach, assistant football coach. So I was doing the things that I did, but not to the same capacity that I used to do. And actually, it's kind of funny that we're speaking about this because so like you mentioned, I teach at Felician University. I'm in the doctoral program, and I have a developmental psychology class. And yesterday in our class, we were talking about the concept of like getting older, right? And the old like late adulthood, and understanding that you might not be able to do the things you used to do, but finding a way to do them that is developmentally appropriate for where you are. So if you're older and like what do a lot of like old time baseball players do? They become managers, right? So they bestow wisdom onto the next generation. They maybe can't play anymore, but they have a lot of knowledge, right? So that's something that I look at because I know I'm young, you know, I'm 36 years old. Um, I have a lot of life left in me. I have a lot of like, you know, energy. But when I'm older, I'd love to just pass along my knowledge and my wisdom to people. And I think at this age too, right now, I'm also doing that to my students, who some of them are actually older than I am, but I am passing along the knowledge, and I love it. And that's a lot along lines of what I've wanted to do with my life.
Oh, you sure are, for sure. No doubt about that. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a lot of nuggets for the listener today to kind of sit back and think about. Like you mentioned before, sometimes we leave the fire service or law enforcement because of an injury. So that's not a planned retirement. So it could
Yeah.
happen tomorrow. But I think it is wise to, consider the future after your first chapter of life of being a first responder, right? So
Yeah.
because
Even
there is more to life than being a first responder, 100%.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think it even before that, right? Like as you're going through your life as a first responder, whatever you do, um, as a firefighter, you have a, you know, 24 hour on, 3 days off. If somebody has if somebody has a hobby, like take that hobby, you know, really throw yourself into that hobby, whether it's painting or I know you do writing, right? So like what you do beyond what you're doing, that is something that you could then do after you retire, or you know, God forbid you have to retire because of injury or some sort of illness or something, like that you're already doing it. You're already doing the thing that you want to do.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Is this one of the main topics that you have conversations with your clients about? Your
This is one of the bigger conversations of especially retirement or being out of work, right? Like even and this is something that I often talk about with people is like when they're out of work for maybe a mental health reason or um they've been through a trauma, uh not being at work for like say a month, people often say to themselves like, who am I beyond? Like I don't know who I am. Like I don't know who I am because I don't have anything else to do. I sit at home all day, I watch TV and it gets boring. And when somebody does something, you know, every single day or, you know, 3 or 4 times a week and you're like so involved in it, it becomes a piece of you. And I never want to take that away from people, but I always want to add to that, like you said, you are more than beyond, you are more than just what you do. And those people that have like say a month off of work because of maybe a mental health issue, a lot of our work is okay, let's work on the mental health, but let's also find these bases to build off of that. So you got to take care of your body, right? You got to eat right. You got to try to get some rest. You have to um, mentally rep things. You have to physically rep things in order to master it. So let's work on positive self-talk. Let's work on accepting that we're out right now. Let's work on finding a hobby. Let's get you back into your normal structure and routine. Otherwise, you're just sitting around doing nothing, right? You're sitting around just kind of, you know, watching TV all day and then feeling not so great about yourself because you're used to, you know, running on calls and doing all these things.
you used to
Yeah.
being productive, you used to being of service, and
Hmm.
now you just feel like you're, yeah, sitting on the couch twiddling your
You're
thumbs. Yeah,
useless.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know you're very passionate about kind of helping people become their ultimate self,
Hmm.
their best self. What would be some of the key things that you see first responders struggle with in becoming their best self? Is there some key, like top three areas that are like, this is the stumbling block to becoming my best self?
Yeah. Um, so I think it all starts off with setting a goal, right? Setting some sort of goal. But the thing I think a lot of people struggle with, and I don't want to label just first responders. I think everybody struggles with this is small steps, like small goals that build off of themselves and become bigger ones. And the other point of it too, and I'll come back to that, is celebrating or recognizing that you've accomplished that goal. And I think me and you spoke about this a little bit when we first met. if I set a goal, right? If I like visually, I'll put this up, I'll put a goal up, right? And I hit that goal and I never recognize that I hit it, that goal then doesn't it actually moves itself rather than me taking it off the bar and moving it for myself. So a lot of people, what they do is they'll be like, oh, like I'm supposed to do that, or I'm supposed to hit that goal. I'm so like it doesn't make sense why I wouldn't hit that goal, but it's still something that you yourself have autonomy over to move, right? So let's say for going for the gym, for instance, and I know a lot of people struggle with this, like, the new year, new me type thing. People say, "Oh, I want to go to the gym," and then they start off going to the gym 5 days a week, but maybe they've never been to the gym, or maybe they don't go as often. That quickly does not. They quickly will find out that that does not work, because 5 days a week to going from nothing to 5 days is a lot. So to make a small step, it's like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym one time a week, right? I'm going to go lift this much weight, and then as you get better and master that, you then take that bar and move it a little higher. Then I'm going to go to the gym twice a week and I'm going to start lifting this weight. Then you keep moving that bar, right? So small, repeatable habits um, is better than big habits that maybe don't sustain any change. I think that's the biggest thing that I see a lot of people struggle with. The other ones too is that, taking care of your body, whether it's sleep, eating right, hydrating, um, physically taking care of your body, right? Because your body is your tool. You're helping people. You're running into burning buildings. You're taking people out of cars. You're reporting to calls. You're going through sleep deprivation, right? That is something that you need to do to take care of your body. In order to take care of your body, you need to eat correctly, eat healthy, try to get the best sleep you possibly can, rest. The other one is working on your mental health, right? And working on things that go along with that, with whether it's positive self-talk, learning how to regulate your emotions, stress management. Those three things I see as the most important foundational tools to get to the next step, to get to the next goal. So those are the three
Love it.
things.
Love it. Is there any tools or techniques that you want to share that maybe help somebody maybe master one of those, or even just start one of those?
Yeah, I'm sure people have heard about this, but a SMART goal, right? So, SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. So we want to set a goal that is specific. So I want to go to the gym 5 times a week. Okay, how do I start with that? I start with one time a week, right? I pull myself back. How am I going to measure it? The M. I measure it by me going. Like, I know I go. I might track it on my phone. I track it on my app for the gym. Um, is it something that I could actually do? Did I have the resources to attain it? Yeah, I have the gym membership. Like, I have the capability. I have the time off that I could do it. I have the physical energy to do it. Is it relatable, or is it something that I could relate to, or is it something that why do I need to do it right now? It's because I want to get in shape, right? Is it time bound? Yeah, I have a month to do this, and then I want to move on to the next goal. So setting a SMART goal for yourself will keep you on track to getting to building. And you could find SMART goal PDFs online. They're free. If you just type in, SMART goal PDF into Google, you could download it and you could fill it out yourself. And it's often a tool that I use with people to kind of set even therapy goals with people. How where do we want to go? Where do you see yourself in terms of 5 months from now, 6 months from now? Okay, let's dial it back. Okay, what are we gonna do for this next month? Then going on from there.
Mentioned a little bit about celebrating those wins, and I think
Yeah,
that's usually the missing component, right? They get to there and then they're all right. Next goal, next thing.
yeah, yeah,
What would be
absolutely.
some healthy rewards that you kind of recommend to people?
So we go back to what I spoke about before with just self-talk, right? Like, just kind of like an attaboy for yourself, or just recognizing that you did it. You don't have to, like, throw a parade because you went to the gym one day. But and it also, you don't want to go to the other side. It's like, oh, I'm looking to maybe lose a little bit of weight, and then go out and have like a 5 course dinner after you went to the gym for one day as a celebration, but within reason, right? So let's say, your goal is to go to the gym 5 times a week and then lose weight, or let's say just 5 times a week. maybe on Saturday you take that rest day. That's a rest day for you, and you do absolutely nothing. And people have their cheat days. That's an opportunity to celebrate. I think the biggest thing is recognizing that you got that win. And I know, and I know I say this, and people will be like, "Well, do you do that?" It took me a long time to recognize that that is a big component of setting goals and getting to your next goal. Even going through this process of becoming a psychologist, and if my wife is listening, and I'm sure she will, she'll know that I was so hard on myself for the progress that I made because I wasn't making it fast enough. And I still to this day sometimes do that to myself where I want things to happen faster than they actually are. And I have to tell myself to slow down, that I'm early in my career, that I things will happen. And I have great mentors here at Baker Street that help me with that as well. But that is something that I think a lot of people need to start doing, and it's just kind of say, hey, I did this, and recognize it and just name it, right? Name it that I've done it and it's great. Okay, now let me move the bar higher. Let me move the bar in a different direction.
I can totally relate. Spent most of my career going from one goal to another goal to another goal. And looking back on it, I didn't enjoy I enjoyed the journey, but I didn't appreciate the journey.
Yeah.
And so I got
Well,
a different lens on it now, right? Of appreciating each part of my life now. So
yeah. Well,
yeah.
when you do that, right? When you don't celebrate the steps, it's harder to then, again, we talk about blueprints, it's harder to then replicate what you did, because it's not so much the the journey, it's the end goal, it's the process that you go through. So if you could develop a process that you went through, you could then replicate it for anything else. So if I know how to then get back into the gym and I fall back, right? Because people look at failures as setbacks. I look at them as feedback, right? I look at them as feedback on what to do. So let's say I go to the gym and then all of a sudden a month goes by where I don't go to the gym. Okay, now I know how to then go to the gym again because I have that blueprint of what I just did. So it's an important thing to recognize that I did it, and now I know how to again in the future if I need to. So yeah.
There's a great book, Ray Dalio's Principles, and he talks about every decision he's ever made in his life. He's documented the process
Oh
on how to
wow.
make that decision. And now
Wow.
he has this thick book
Yeah.
of all his principles, and basically it makes a decision fatigue almost non-existent for him because he's got a blueprint, right? So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
it's a great book. It's a business book, but it's a great book. Yeah.
Hmm.
So what's in your self-care toolbox? What do you do for yourself every day that you want to share with the world?
Sure. So one of my biggest self-care tools is my family, my wife. She's the person that helps me out the most in every day. And if I didn't have her, I would not be here, literally would not be in this position. So she is the person that helps me balance everything where, we have a 5-year-old daughter, and it takes a lot to to raise her. And she's a very lively young woman. But my wife, like even this morning, my wife usually takes my daughter to school, and then I pick her up on Friday. So one of my self-care things is we balance back and forth, where I might go get groceries, and she's gonna stay home with her, and or she'll take her to gymnastics. A couple other things too is like I reserve the weekends as family time, and we try to do Saturdays are our busiest day in terms of doing things. And we usually, this is not like a financially smart sometimes, but we usually eat out most of the day. Uh, but it's because we're working so hard, right, throughout the week, um, where we're getting home at 6, 7 o'clock at night, and we only get to see each other for like an hour or two or a couple of hours. The weekends are like that's family time. I go with my parents on Sundays for lunch, and we do lunch and breakfast, maybe out, or dinner. We go to the park when it's nice out. Like this weekend, my daughter's got a t-ball game, and then we'll go get hot dogs afterwards. So a lot of family time. Jujitsu, definitely. That's like my biggest thing. I train about 3, 4 times a week. I also teach there too, when I can. Um, I think the biggest thing, and when I come to when I leave sessions, is not taking my work home with me as a opportunity for me to separate myself as a again, I'm more than just a psychologist. I'm a father, I'm a brother, I'm all those things. So the thing I do, and I share this with a lot of people, and some people look at me like, how does that work? Is there's a hook on the back of my door right now, but I metaphorically take my hat off and I put it on a hook. And it denotes that I'm leaving this here. And usually, and this is funny, I said this the other day, usually the hat that I think about is a fedora. And I take the like a white fedora, I take that white fedora off and I put it on that hook. And when I walk out, I'm like, okay, now I'm into dad mode. I'm into friend mode. I'm into this mode. Yes, of course, my work then sometimes comes home with me because we got email, we got technology, but I try my hardest to balance that a lot. And those are some of my like really self-care things that I do every day. And of course, watching, guilty pleasure shows on TV, on Netflix, and some movies. And those are some of the things that I do enjoy to kind of wind down from the day.
I love that visualization of the fedora on the helmet because that or on the wall
Hook.
because I think that's one of those things that a lot of first responders I talk to, it struggles from that transition period of going
Yeah.
from being a firefighter, a police officer to being a father, a mother at home, right? So yeah, that's one of the biggest struggles. So I'm glad you highlighted that and
Yeah.
how you do that. Is
Yeah.
that something you did from day one, or is that something you've learned over the years of to separate that?
Yeah. So early on in my career, I was listening to a podcast, and the podcast was saying how a lot of therapists do take their work home with them, and it affects their families. And at that time, I believe I was just married, or we've been married a few years, and I was going through a lot of different internships, and I was traveling a lot, like traveling to New York and back, and we're only about 15 minutes away, but I was working a lot, and I'm like, I don't want to take this home. Like I don't want to take what I hear. Obviously, I can't because it's confidential, but I don't want to like internalize it and let it like kind of erode me. So I was listening to the podcast, and one of the things they said was a therapist used to do this, a mental visualization of leaving their, I think for her it was leaving her purse at the door, right? Or leaving her shoes at the door. That's what it was. And I was like, I'm not, I don't think I can get behind leaving my shoes at the door, but I can leave my hat at the door. And I'm like, oh, and I saw the hook and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start doing this. And it kind of felt a little funny in the beginning. It didn't really catch on, but I do this every time I'm in the office. Even when I'm home in my home office, I stop, I put my hat, even if it's for like a brief second, I put my hat on the hook, and I kind of walk into walk between the barrier of psychologist to dad, or whomever I'm going to become next. But I think for first responders, what one thing that could help with them to almost like energize that, or motivate them to do that, is finding something to look forward to outside of the job, right? So we talk about hobbies, we talk about finding yourself. Like, I'm looking forward to going home and seeing my kid, my daughter. I'm looking forward to going home and going to jujitsu. And that's why I could leave the things here, because I have things to look forward to. And sometimes people don't have that. And I understand that, and it's difficult, but finding your way to leave yourself at work it's gonna put so many more years on your career. Um, it's gonna help you with family life. It's gonna help you with communication, right? It's gonna help you with a lot of different things.
That's exactly what took the years off my career was not doing that, right? So
Mm,
yeah, I lived and breathed fire at home, and I'm sure my family suffered from it, but yeah, it's was live and breathe fire 24/7.
yeah,
And looking back on it, how the wisdom I've kind of gathered since then is like that's not the healthy way to go through your career. So having those transition, having those ideas, there's more to life than first responder world, right? So or
yeah, yeah.
psychology or whatever that looks like.
Hmm.
So, doctor, is there a question that I haven't asked you yet that you wish I had asked you?
Um, Not really. I mean, that this you kind of hit all the things that I touched on and I'd like to talk about. And I just wish and just hope that we could get into the minds of the fire service industry, and those who serve, and say to them like, hey, listen, just because you come and sit on a couch and talk to somebody about what's going on in your life doesn't make you less of a fireman, law enforcement officer, emergency service personnel. It actually enhances your performance and enhances your career. And again, remember, like everything that we say in here is confidential. There's I think people don't want to come because they think it's going to get out, and obviously there's a big stigma around talking to people, but I want to hear your stories. Like I want to hear what's going on with you because I want to help you be the best possible version of yourself. And I can't do that if you're home. I can't do that if you come if you don't, if you don't come. So I mean it's a great opportunity to hear the stories of people that serve us or serve me as a civilian, and for me to give back to them and say thank you for all the things that you've done for us, right?
I think last time we talked prior to this recording was talking a little bit about somatic work.
Mhm.
And how do you incorporate that into your practice?
Yeah. Um, so there's a concept in ACT called dropping anchor, the acceptance and commitment therapy, and the component of dropping anchor is really about dropping into that space where you don't feel comfortable. So with somatic work, usually working with somebody who's had trauma or anxiety disorders, a lot of physiological responses to stress. So heart beating faster. And that's also where the biofeedback comes in. But in sessions, sometimes we have to do a lot of sitting, like kind of sitting there and sitting with the uncomfortable feeling. And a component of the visualization is visualizing yourself working through this physiological response. So, what do you do when your heart starts to beat faster? How do you get it to regulate? So, I'm going to do a box breathing exercise, or I'm going to do diaphragmatic breathing exercises, or I might have to do a progressive muscle relaxation in the moment to kind of help myself, a body scan to just kind of sense where I am and what's going on with me. Because when we're in a panic, when we're in like a stressful situation, we don't often look inward to see like what's going on and how can I help it. It's kind of like alarm, right? You get an alarm gets set off and it's like, oh my God, what's going on with me? So in the sessions, I usually have people work on. So I do exposure work, and one of my trainings what I've been trained in is OCD, and the golden standard for OCD to treat OCD is exposure and response prevention, and a component to that is either in vivo or imaginal. And we do a lot of imaginal exposures, and a bigger component of that is the somatic work, which is called interoceptive exposures. So interoceptive exposures is a intentional exposure to the somatic sensations that you would feel with a panic attack or anxiety. So we intentionally provoke it so then people could work themselves down to a baseline. And then when it happens more often, you kind of desensitize yourself to the feeling, and your brain and your body connect, and they say, oh, this is not as bad as it was before, or I can handle this. And you kind of retrain your brain and reframe the way you think about the somatic feelings that you would feel in session or at home.
Love that. Love that.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit as we kind of come to a wrap here, a little bit about how people can maybe connect with you for either services or referrals.
Absolutely. So we are Baker Street Behavioral Health. You can find us at bakerstreetpsych.com. Our numbers on the website. I think I have sent you the link, so maybe we could link that in there. And you call our front office. Our front office staff is top notch. You get an actual person when you call the front office. You don't get an automated system. You don't get press one for this. You get a person that will walk you through the process of setting up your insurance details, taking in all your information, and then your first appointment. And we really pride ourselves in a 24-hour to 48-hour turnaround from call. So if you do need help and you call us, just say, hey, I'm a first responder. They'll ask you what department or where do you work? What do you do? You tell them that, and then we'll get you in fairly quickly.
Is this specific just to Jersey or New York or
Yeah, so I'm licensed in New York and New Jersey. I'm also PsyPack licensed, which is a psychologist license that allows me to see, I think, in 42 or 43 other states, virtually. Um, and we do provide telehealth from coast to coast at Baker Street. So we do have clinicians from coast to coast. So if there's a need in another state, we will find it. We will find it for you.
and I'm assuming Canada, no services there, or do you have services in Canada as well?
Um, that I do not know. That I'm not sure, not 100% sure about. I know in
Sounds
the
good.
United States. Yeah, yeah.
Sounds good. Well, it's great since well, probably COVID assisted this was the expansion of, telehealth and being able to access clients from all across North America, right? So that's a beautiful thing. Yeah. All right, you got the stage to leave our audience with one final message that you would just feel terrible not to share with the world today.
So my final message, and this is something that I think we touched on throughout, is progress isn't about leaps and bounds. It's steady steps forward, that no matter what you do, it needs to be consistently worked at, right? So progress looks differently for everybody. It's not always linear. So if you're worried about your neighbor progressing faster than you are, just look at yourself in the mirror and say, hey, I am me, and this is what I do, and I'm going to continue on with my journey.
Love that. Yeah, unfortunately, we as humans, we compare ourselves a lot to other people, right? And especially with social media, Instagram, all that kind of stuff is like we're always comparing ourselves, and that's not good for our mental health, is it? We have our own bodies to worry about. Just worry about ourselves, right? So I love it. I appreciate your sharing your wisdom today, and I'm sure the listener has been writing feverishly some notes down to maybe help with some SMART goals. So lots of great things in there. All right, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed this great episode. And like I said, jotted down some notes around making goals, habit building, transitions, how to retire in a well-balanced manner. Lots of good nuggets to help you in your life. So until next time, stay well. That's a wrap.
Thank you for tuning in to Beneath the Helmet. We hope that this podcast has provided you with valuable insights into the world of firefighters' health and wellness. Remember, caring for your physical, mental, and spiritual well-being is crucial to achieving optimal performance. Join us next time on Beneath the Helmet for more inspiring conversations. Until then, stay well.